The first sound that morning wasn't birdsong or wind through the leaves. It was the low, grinding growl of diesel engines crawling up the dirt road toward my vineyard. I remember standing there with a mug of coffee gone cold in my hands, watching the dust rise like smoke over the rows of ripening grapes, and feeling something snap inside my chest. Excavators. Yellow. Massive. Their steel arms swung lazily, confident, like predators that had already decided the hunt was over. By the time I realized what was happening, the lead machine had already crushed the wooden marker at the edge of my land. The sign my late father and I had hammered in together years ago cracked in half beneath the treads. And that's when I saw her. Karen. Clipboard tucked against her chest, oversized sunglasses on, HOA badge pinned proudly to her blazer like a medal of honor. She stood well back from the vines, immaculate and untouched by dust, nodding as if she were conducting an orchestra. When she saw me running toward her, she smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind that says, "You should have known better." "Stop," I shouted, waving my arms. "You can't do this. That's my land." She didn't even flinch. She raised one manicured finger and pointed at the operator, signaling him to keep going. The excavator's bucket dipped into the earth between the vines, tearing roots out of the soil like veins from a body. Green leaves shook violently. Clusters of grapes burst and fell, split open, their juice bleeding into the dirt. "You were warned," Karen said calmly when I finally reached her. "This easement has been approved by the HOA. You refused to comply." Easement. That single word felt like a knife. I had heard it before, in letters stuffed into my mailbox, printed in bold legal language meant to scare people into submission. Letters demanding I remove my unauthorized agricultural operation. Letters claiming the road expansion required my land. Letters threatening fines. I had ignored them, not because I was careless, but because I knew something they either didn't know, or didn't care about. "This vineyard predates your HOA," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't have jurisdiction here." Karen sighed theatrically. "Sir, we went over this. Your property is adjacent to HOA managed land. The board voted. The work is scheduled. If you continue to interfere, I will call the police." I laughed then. A sharp, broken sound that surprised even me. "Please do." That finally made her pause. The vineyard wasn't just grapes. It was my life. It had been my father's dream before it was mine. He bought this land decades before the subdivision ever existed, when it was nothing but hills, oak trees, and sky. He taught me how to test the soil, how to prune the vines just enough so they'd struggle and grow sweeter fruit. We harvested together every fall until cancer took him too fast. I spread some of his ashes at the far end of the field, beneath the oldest vine. The HOA showed up years later, glossy brochures promising luxury living and community harmony. They paved roads, built identical houses, and elected people like Karen to enforce rules written by lawyers who had never touched dirt with their bare hands. The first conflict started small. Complaints about farm odors. Then, tractors using shared access roads. Then noise. Then the letters about easements and expansions. They wanted a scenic walking trail and a service road, right through the heart of my vineyard. They said it would increase property values. I said it would destroy my harvest. They assumed I would fold. The excavator ripped through a second row. I ran in front of it, forcing the operator to slam the brakes. He leaned out of the cab, eyes wide. "Ma'am, he's on the land," he shouted back at Karen. "This doesn't feel right." She snapped her fingers. "You're contracted. Keep going." That's when I pulled out my phone and dialed the sheriff's office. "County Sheriff," the dispatcher answered. "There are excavators destroying my property," I said. "I need a deputy out here now." Karen smirked. "Good. Let's clear this up." The minutes that followed felt like hours. Every second another vine was crushed, another season erased. I knelt in the dirt at one point, grabbing handfuls of broken leaves, my hands shaking so badly I could barely stand. When the patrol car finally appeared at the end of the road, dust swirling behind it, Karen straightened like a soldier. The excavators idled. Silence fell heavy over the field. The sheriff stepped out slowly. Older man. Calm eyes. He took in the scene without a word. The machines, the torn earth, the ruined vines, Karen's clipboard, my dirt-streaked clothes. "What's going on?" he asked. Karen launched into her speech instantly. "Sheriff, thank you for coming. This man is interfering with an HOA-approved infrastructure project. We have documentation." She shoved a folder toward him. The sheriff didn't even look at it yet. He turned to me. "This your land?" "Yes, sir," I said. "And they're trespassing." Karen scoffed. "That's not accurate. The WA holds an easement. Ma'am, the sheriff said gently but firmly, let's slow down. He opened the folder, flipped through the pages, then closed it again. Where's the deed? Karen blinked. The deed, the property deed, he repeated. Not WA paperwork. County deed. She frowned. We don't have that, but our legal team assured us. The sheriff turned to me. You have your deed. I nodded and ran to my truck, hands trembling as I pulled the worn envelope from the glove box. I had carried it for years, ever since the first threatening letter arrived. I handed it to him like it was something fragile. He unfolded it carefully, scanning every line. Karen's smile faded. The sheriff walked to the edge of the vineyard, comparing the deed to the land markers still visible beneath the dust. He took his time. Too much time for Karen's liking. Well, he finally said, this is pretty clear. Karen crossed her arms. Clear how? This land is not part of the WA, he said. And there is no recorded easement granting access or development rights. Which means, he turned to the excavator operators, you're destroying private property without authorization. The color drained from Karen's face. That's impossible, she snapped. We voted. We approved it. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. You can't vote yourselves ownership of land you don't own. One of the operators shut off his engine completely. Another climbed down from his cab, removing his hard hat. Karen's voice rose. This will delay the entire project. Do you have any idea how much money? I need everyone to stop work immediately, the sheriff said. Ma'am, I'm also going to need your name. For the first time since this started, Karen looked scared. The excavators froze where they stood, steel arms hanging awkwardly over the wounded vineyard. Dust settled slowly, revealing the damage in brutal clarity. Broken vines, crushed fruit, tire tracks like scars. I expected to feel victorious in that moment. Instead, my chest hurt. Too much had already been taken. Karen tried one last time. Sheriff, surely we can work something out. Maybe compensation. He shook his head. You can work it out with his lawyer. Right now, you're done here. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Without another word, she turned and walked back toward her SUV, heels sinking slightly into the dirt she'd tried to erase. The excavator operators followed, avoiding my eyes. When they were gone, the vineyard felt eerily quiet. The sheriff stayed with me a while, helping document the damage. He took photos, wrote notes, and finally handed me a card. You should file a civil claim, he said. And consider a restraining order against the WA. I nodded. Thank you. Before he left, he looked out over the field. Your father would be proud you stood your ground. I didn't tell him how much that meant. The aftermath wasn't quick or easy. The HOA's lawyers scrambled. Karen resigned, for personal reasons. The board issued a statement full of apologies and excuses that said nothing at all. My lawsuit dragged on for months, but the evidence was overwhelming. The deed, the lack of easement, the sheriff's report. In the end, the WA paid for the destroyed vines, the lost harvest, and punitive damages. Enough that I could replant. Enough that I could build a stronger fence, with clear markers no one could pretend not to see. On the first harvest after the replanting, I stood at the edge of the field again. The vines were young, but healthy. The grapes weren't ready yet, but they would be. I poured a little wine into the soil beneath the oldest surviving vine, a quiet toast to my father. The road they wanted was never built. And every time someone from the subdivision walks by and looks longingly at the vineyard they tried to steal, I remember the sound of those engines freezing in place, and the look on Karen's face when the deed came out. Some things can't be voted away. A furious homeowner confronting excavators tearing through a lush vineyard at sunrise, dust and broken vines in the air, dramatic lighting. A stern WA woman with a clipboard and sunglasses standing confidently beside heavy machinery while grapevines are destroyed. Close-up of crushed grape clusters bleeding juice into the dirt beneath an excavator's tracks. A tense standoff as a sheriff's patrol car arrives at a vineyard with excavators idling in the background. The sheriff carefully examining an old property deed while the WA representative looks shocked and pale. Excavator operators shutting down their machines as the realization of illegal destruction sets in. A devastated vineyard with broken vines and torn soil under a cloudy sky, quiet after chaos. The WA woman walking away toward an SUV, defeated, while the homeowner stands among the vines. The homeowner kneeling in the vineyard at sunset, holding soil and leaves, emotional and reflective. A hopeful final scene of a replanted vineyard at golden hour, young vines growing strong under open sky.